The gas station was nearly empty that evening. Bathed in the soft amber glow of flickering lights, the hum of neon signs mixed with the occasional rumble of passing cars on the deserted highway. It was the kind of quiet that makes shadows seem deeper, where every sound feels amplified, and every stranger looks like a threat. A group of bikers had pulled in, their motorcycles gleaming under the dim lights. Engines were still warm, exhaust fumes curling lazily in. The cool air leather jackets, worn and faded with patches of past journeys, and chrome helmets glinting under the neon. They looked like they belonged to another world, a world far from the mundane suburban streets that the little girl had run away from. And yet, here she was. A small, trembling figure darted out from the shadows. Her shoes were scuffed, her jeans slightly too big, and her brown hair hung in messy strands around her tear-streaked face. Her backpack swung wildly with each hurried step, and her tiny hands clutched it so tightly that her knuckles were white. The bikers noticed her immediately. There was something urgent, almost desperate, in the way she moved, a raw fear that didn't belong to the ordinary trouble of a child. She stumbled to a stop right in front of the row of motorcycles, panting, her chest rising and falling like a fragile bird trying to escape a cage. My stepfather, she stammered, voice barely above a whisper. He wants to take me away. Please. She broke down, burying her face in her hands. The sound of her sobs cut through the quiet night, catching even the hardest biker off guard. They had faced storms, long rides in the dead of winter, and fights that would make most people tremble. But this helpless plea stirred something deeper. The leader of the group, a tall man with streaks of gray in his hair and a scar running along his jawline, looked at her. His eyes softened, betraying the rough exterior he always carried like armor. "Hey," he said gently, crouching to her level. "Hey kid, what's going on? My stepfather. He's going to take me. I don't know where, and I can't let him," she cried, shaking violently. "I don't have anyone. Please, please help me." The words hung in the air like smoke. The bikers didn't speak. For a moment they just looked at her, the weight of her fear pressing down like a physical force. None of them had kids of their own, or if they did, they hadn't seen them in years. But instinctively, they knew that no child deserved to feel this much terror. Finally, the leader stood and looked at the rest of the group. "We're not letting her go anywhere with him," he said firmly, his voice steady and commanding. It wasn't a question, it was a promise. The girl blinked up at them, hope mingling with disbelief. You will," one of the younger bikers, barely out of his 20s, gave her a reassuring smile. "Yeah, kid, we've got you, don't worry." The girl's tears began to flow freely again, but this time they were accompanied by a shaky smile. She took a step closer, her tiny hand reaching for the nearest biker's arm. He bent down and let her grasp his leather-clad forearm, the contrast between her fragile hands and his rough, calloused skin. "Stark, where do we start?" the leader asked, already moving toward his bike. The girl swallowed hard. "He's waiting at the old warehouse by the river. He said he's going to take me tonight." Her voice trembled, but she spoke the words clearly, as if naming the place could make it real. The bikers nodded, exchanging silent signals with each other. No words were needed. They had faced dangerous situations before, but this was different. This wasn't about money, pride, or reputation. This was about protecting someone who couldn't protect herself. The girl climbed onto the back of the leader's bike, holding on tightly. As he swung a leg over and started the engine, the sound was deafening in the quiet night. But it was comforting too, a promise of action, of escape. She buried her face in his jacket as they took off, the cold wind biting at her cheeks. The road stretched out before them like a ribbon of uncertainty. Streetlights flickered by, casting fleeting shadows that danced across her frightened face. Every passing moment was a mixture of hope and fear. Hope that she would be safe, fear that they might be too late. The bikers rode with precision, weaving through the empty streets and taking shortcuts that only seasoned riders would know. Behind them, the quiet hum of the gas station faded, leaving only the roar of the engines and the thumping of the girl's heart. "She's small, fragile," muttered one of the bikers, glancing back at her. "But damn, she's got guts, asking strangers for help like that. She doesn't have a choice," replied another. "And we don't either. She's ours now. We don't let anyone hurt her." For the little girl, each moment on the bike was surreal. The leather jacket smelled faintly of smoke and oil. The wind whipped through her hair, and her heart pounded like it would burst from her chest. She kept glancing at the bikers around her, Their tattoos, their scars, their rugged faces, but most of all, she noticed the way they protected her instinctively strangers. Yes, but already her guardians, as the warehouse loomed in the distance. Dark and foreboding against the night sky, the girl swallowed a lump in her throat, fear clawed at her chest again, but this time it was tempered by trust. These men, who could have ignored her, who could have ridden past, had chosen to fight for her, and somehow that made all the difference. The leader slowed down, signaling the group to form. A protective formation around the girl. Stay close, he whispered. No. One touches her. The little girl nodded, her grip on his arm tightening. She didn't know what would happen next, but for the first time in a long while, she believed she might just be safe. And as they approached the dark silhouette of the warehouse, the engine's roar faded into a tense silence. The night was no longer quiet. It was alive with anticipation, with courage, and with a determination that would not be broken. The girl took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next. But she knew one thing for certain: she wasn't alone. The warehouse loomed ahead, like a dark sentinel, abandoned and foreboding against the night sky. Rusted metal panels clanged softly in the wind. Broken windows reflected the pale moonlight, and the distant drip of water echoed like a warning. The little girl clutched the leader's jacket, her knuckles white, her heart hammering against her chest. Every step closer made her fear swell, but she had learned one thing on this ride: these bikers were her shield, and she wasn't alone anymore. The leader signaled for the group to slow down. One by one, the motorcycles formed a protective perimeter, engines idling but ready to roar, their shadows stretched across the cracked asphalt, jagged and intimidating, a silent warning to anyone daring to harm the child they were protecting. She's small, fragile, murmured one of the younger bikers, glancing at the girl. But if anyone dares, we won't hold back. The girl swallowed hard, her eyes darted toward the warehouse's shadowed entrance. She could see him now, her stepfather, pacing impatiently, muttering to himself, his silhouette sharp against the dim light inside. He looked menacing, confident, and unaware that he was about to face a force he had never imagined. The leader leaned toward the girl, his voice calm but firm. Stay behind us. Don't make a sound unless we tell you, understand? She nodded quickly, gripping his arm even tighter. The moment was heavy with tension, the kind that made the hair on the back of your neck stand on end. Every biker in the group felt it too. Every muscle tense, every eye scanning, every instinct screaming that danger was near. Then, as if on cue, they moved not recklessly, but with a precision honed from years of riding through storms, facing road fights, and surviving the unexpected. The girl followed their lead, keeping low, her tiny form shielded by the bikers who flanked her like living armor. The stepfather had no idea. His confidence was his weakness. He didn't notice the shadows that shifted silently around him, didn't hear the soft thrum of engines idling just beyond the warehouse walls. And then he did. A single roar of a motorcycle engine shattered the stillness like a gunshot. He froze, turning sharply, his eyes widening as the bikers emerged from the darkness, forming a wall between him and the girl. Stay back, the leader commanded, voice low and steady, carrying authority that brooked no argument. Nobody touches her. The man laughed nervously, trying to hide his fear with a false bravado. Who are you? He demanded. You don't even know me. This is none of your business. The leader stepped closer, his shadow towering over the man. It's our business now. You made it personal when you tried to hurt her, and trust me, you made a mistake. The girl watched silently, awe and relief washing over her in equal measure. She had imagined herself alone in this fight, but now she realized she had an army behind her. These strangers, these rough, tattooed, loud, sometimes frightening men, were her protectors. The man tried to step forward, but a biker blocked him with a firm stance, arms crossed, eyes cold and unyielding. Another revved his engine, the vibration thrumming through the concrete, a subtle but unmistakable threat. You're not taking her anywhere, said another biker, voice sharp and unwavering. Not tonight, not ever. Panic flickered in the man's eyes. His bravado was crumbling. He realized too late that he was outnumbered, outmatched, and outsmarted. The bikers didn't need to fight. Their unity, their presence, their sheer confidence was enough to make him hesitate. The leader turned to the girl, offering her a reassuring smile. It's okay, you're safe. You don't have to be scared anymore. For the first time in what felt like forever, she let herself breathe. Her shoulders relaxed slightly, and a small, tentative smile appeared through her tears. She had survived the ride here, she had survived the fear, and now she could survive the confrontation. The stepfather made a move, perhaps out of desperation, perhaps out of anger, but it was clumsy. The bikers were ready. Two stepped forward. Blocking his path instantly, the leader's hand hovered near the man's shoulder, a silent warning. One more move, and he would be stopped. "Leave her alone," the leader said. Calm yet terrifying in its firmness. "This ends tonight. You don't get to hurt her ever again." The man stumbled back, realizing that intimidation alone could no longer protect him. His voice faltered, his threats turning hollow. He had underestimated the bond that had formed between a frightened little girl and a group of strangers who had become her family in the span of a single night. With one final defiant glare, he retreated. Backing away toward the dark corners of the warehouse, he muttered curses under his breath, but the bikers didn't flinch. They stayed in position, ensuring that he could not follow. Finally, the leader turned fully to the girl. "You okay?" he asked gently. She nodded, tears of relief and exhaustion streaming down her face. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much." Another biker knelt to her level, ruffling her hair in a protective, almost brotherly way. "You were brave, kid, braver than most grown-ups I know." The little girl's lips trembled into a shy smile. She had faced her fear head-on, and with the bikers by her side, she had survived. As they escorted her back toward their motorcycles, the engines roared to life once more. The night air was cool, the darkness no longer threatening, but filled with the promise of safety. The girl climbed onto the leader's bike again, this time with a sense of hope and gratitude that warmed her from the inside out. The ride back was quiet. At first the girl leaned against the leader, exhausted but safe. The bikers rode in formation, silent but vigilant, a pack that had found its purpose in protecting someone who had no one else. Somewhere along the road, the little girl looked up at the stars, realizing that her life had changed forever. Strangers had become heroes. Fear had turned into courage, and a terrifying night had transformed into a story she would one day tell. Not about the danger, but about the kindness, bravery, and heart of those who had risked everything to keep her safe. By the time they reached a safe house, a small, welcoming home far from the shadows of the warehouse, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't known. In years, the bikers stayed just long enough to ensure she was settled, checking the locks, making sure she had food, making sure she knew she was truly safe. The leader knelt before her one last time. "Remember this," he said softly. "You're stronger than you think, and no matter what, there are people out there who will fight for you always." She nodded, holding his hand briefly before letting go. The bikers mounted their motorcycles, engines roaring into the night, fading into the distance, but leaving behind a promise that she would never forget. Alone in the warm glow of the safe house, the little girl finally allowed herself to cry again, this time tears of relief, gratitude, and hope. The night that had begun in fear had ended in safety, and for the first time, she truly believed that she was free and somewhere. Down the highway, the motorcycles disappeared into the darkness, leaving a trail of courage, loyalty, and the kind of heroism that only comes when ordinary people choose to do extraordinary things.